Thank you very much, Ali, for a very fine and detailed introduction, and welcome everyone to the webinar entitled Managing with KPIs, Processes, Techniques, and Tools for KPI Data Gathering and Analysis. Now, as Ali already detailed my background, both my professional background and my educational background, I will just keep all together these slides and proceed with the agenda of the event and learning outcomes that we are looking together to get from this session. Now, before starting, I would like to tell you that this is the fourth in a series of webinars that the KPI Institute is facilitating in collaboration with MAL, Medina Institute for Entrepreneurship and Leadership in Saudi Arabia. And this webinar, as I told you, will look into activating KPIs, processes, techniques, and tools that can be used for activating KPIs and KPI data gathering. We'll look on approaches to KPI data analysis, and at the end of the session we'll have an expo, as I like to call it, on KPI scorecards and dashboard, and we'll discuss a little bit in terms of scorecards and dashboard as enablers of analysis and reporting. Now, as the main learning outcomes that I'm targeting from this session is for you to get clarity with the KPI activation and data gathering process, to enhance understanding of main processes, techniques, and tools used for KPI data management, to review together some practical examples on KPI scorecards and dashboards, and see what are the challenges on data visualization and reporting, and in the end, to generally to learn to manage correctly the KPI framework. As an overview, among the major challenges of managing the KPI framework is data gathering, visualization, and analysis. And one of the key factors for success in this direction is understanding how you would correctly develop and deploy processes, techniques, and tools for KPI data management. Now, in terms of approaching these issues, the research work done in the field by the KPI Institute brings clarity to these topics, and this is what we are going to discuss in the upcoming 45 to 50 minutes. I have around 55 slides, and there are quite a few, so I will emphasize more on some of them, and on some of them we'll just go through them, and I'm invited to see them as an expo of examples. The webinar has quite a lot of examples on dashboards, scorecards, techniques, tools, and so on. In terms of managing with KPIs, the KPI Institute has developed a KPI management framework. And what you have in front of you is the KPI management framework concept map. Now, in the first series of webinars, we've discussed about the KPI selection and KPI documentation processes. And in this session, we are targeting to discuss the data gathering and data analysis as part of the KPI management framework concept map. Now, there are quite a few building blocks, as we call them, or facts that relate to correctly manage KPIs. And besides data gathering and analysis, we can discuss, as I already emphasized, about KPI selection and KPI documentation, data visualization, reporting, initiative management, learning, decision making, and performance culture. Now, all these are impacted, and in relation with each of these building blocks, we can discuss about certain levels, such as tools, techniques, processes, governance, architecture, the integration, and the hardware and the software as enablers of the KPI management process in general. What stays at the base of the KPI framework is the philosophy, and we have here certain scenarios as what impacts how we can correctly manage with KPIs. We are looking at aims in terms of clarity, focus, improvement, learning, and communication. Now, today we'll discuss about data analysis and data gathering, but also in terms of this, in relation with the scorecards and the dashboard, we'll approach some aspects of data visualization, but also reporting. We'll start with data gathering, and we'll look at the KPI activation and data gathering process. Then we'll review 3 main techniques: meeting KPI data custodian persons, involving data custodians in a community of practice, and the reminder emails that can be sent, and the tool that stays at the base of the data gathering process, the data gathering template. In terms of the main processes for gathering data, we can talk about KPI activation. Now, a structured approach in activating KPIs sets the basis for an efficient data gathering process. And in this context, KPI activation should be coordinated in order to ensure that all data custodians and KPI owners have the same understanding in regards to their roles and tasks. What you have on your right hand side of the screen is the process that can be employed in case we are at the beginning of establishing a KPI framework. In terms of activating KPIs, we need to conduct first some meetings of the persons who are in charge for gathering and collecting the data. And certain meeting days need to be agreed ahead of this activation process. In terms of KPIs, there are 2 types of KPIs that an organization usually is monitoring. There are inactive KPIs and active KPIs. Active KPIs are those KPIs for which we have already data. So we are proceeding on a road of establishing a KPI framework. We select the KPIs, we document the KPIs, we identify the definitions, the calculation formulas, the purpose of the KPIs. But then we need to gather the data for those KPIs. For some of those, we already have data as they are monitored, but some of the KPIs are new, and these are inactive KPIs. In order to activate them, we need to address some challenges in terms of what are the means of gathering the data, what are the systems from which we are gathering the data, who is in charge for gathering this data for the KPIs, and of course, for all the KPIs, we need to have a budget, a data collection budget. For some KPIs, the collection of data is intuitive and don't requires a very extensive effort in terms of human resources that need to be allocated or budget. But for some KPIs, we need to allocate extensive budgets. Such examples can be, for instance, customer satisfaction or employee engagement as two of the most popular KPIs monitored nowadays by organizations. Once you have these KPIs activated, you need to gather the data, and you need to send notifications to KPI data custodians. Now, KPI data custodians are person in charge, usually business analysts, for gathering, collecting the data from their departments or from different sources of information and inserting them in a system which can be a BI tool, or we can discuss about an Excel solution. For doing this, we have KPI activation templates, but we also need to send some reminders. Usually, the analysts in charge with collecting the data are usually have a very busy schedule and other tasks that need to perform on the same time. And from the insights that we receive from different projects that we were engaged in and training courses, usually the data gathering and collection process is the last one which is approached. So in this respect, we need to send reminders. And here I'm talking about an email that can be issued to these persons in charge for sending the data. Now, sometimes reminders are not enough, and we need to put some peer pressure, which means that together with an email, we can send a template with all the KPI data custodians and the status of KPI data submissions. This will put some pressure on the peers, on the colleagues, and will enable a more effective data collection process. Once this is done, once the data is collected, then we can discuss and gathered, then we can discuss about analyzing the data and reporting it and preparing the reports for the reporting meetings, performance meetings that usually take place monthly, quarterly, depending on each organization setups. Now, once we activate the KPIs, the next step will be to gather the data. So we have data for the KPIs, but this needs to be collected. And in terms of this, there are several challenges. One of them is availability of data. I already expressed that for some KPIs, especially for those organizations who are at the beginning with such a KPI project, usually 20 to 30% of the KPIs are inactive. You don't have data. So one of the challenges is to collect data for those KPIs. Another issue is that the timelines, the delays in reporting, as I've expressed. And the third challenge is the accuracy. Data inaccuracies due to human error or software configuration errors. Now, mostly this happens when the processes are not automated. The process is much easier when we have employed a BI software. Some of them have data accuracy systems in place, and it's much easier to work with data. It facilitates the process of data gathering and data analysis. Now, in terms of data gathering, one of the issues is the quality of the data. We've discussed about the making KPIs active. We've discussed a little bit about sending the data in due time. Now, another issue is with the data quality. And here we need to review several dimensions, such as if all the data which needs to be analyzed is available, if the data is provided at the time needed, if all the data values within the value domains are specified, if the data reflects the real world objects or verified sources, and so on. Usually in terms of data quality, systems such ERPs, CRMs are providing more qualitative data and more accurate data. Samely with internal reports, especially financial ones, accounting reports, these provide more qualitative and reliable data. Issues emerge when we are talking about gathering data from surveys or benchmarking reports. Usually in this type of solutions, data is gathered manually, and errors can occur more frequently than with the automated or more automated systems available. In terms of techniques, one of them could be to meet KPI data custodians in person. While doing this, you can provide an environment for analyzing what are the challenges in data gathering, for sharing different insights of the data gathering process. So establishing such meetings with KPI data custodians can enable and make the data gathering process more efficient. Another technique is to involve data custodians in a community of practice. This will provide a common platform to communicate and share work-related experience. It stimulates learning and creates collaborative processes. Now, LinkedIn, for example, is such a platform which facilitates structuring or building such communities of practices. There are communities of practices or groups, how are named on LinkedIn, on different subjects and industries. Samely, there are community of practices which are not facilitated as part of a social platform, but are initiatives from different companies. For example, currently I'm being involved in discussions for setting a community of practice for specialists in HSE, health, security and environment, relating to oil and gas industry. Same happened with a custom union which requested to try to develop such a community of practice with a set of custom unions from around the world which have best practices in performance management and KPI measurement. Another technique that can be employed, and I've already discussed as part of the process for KPI data gathering, is sending reminder email. Such an email can sound like this: Dear KPI data custodian, please find below the status of data submission for each of the KPIs we are including in our monthly performance report. I look forward to receiving the data from those of you who haven't had the chance to do so until now. As a reminder, our deadline for data submission is end of day so and so. Please let me know if there is any other information I could provide. And then you can attach such a table that details what is the status. You can go even further, putting pressure on KPI data custodians, and you can send an even more elaborate table which also can have the traffic lights, a section with traffic lights, signaling the status of submissions. For example, one of the data custodians had to submit 8 KPIs. he already submitted KPIs, his status is on red, while another one had to submit data for 2 KPIs. Up to the date, he or she didn't submit any, so the status is on red. And you can have other related information in terms what are the KPIs for which data is still expected. Now, as the tools that can be employed for the data gathering process, here you have such an example. This is a snapshot from an Excel sheet, a data gathering template configured as part of Microsoft Excel solution. And you have on the horizontal the KPI names, and on vertical, on the columns, you have the data. Now, for these KPIs, the data is reported monthly, so the M stands for monthly. And you have data inserted for each of the 12 months for 2010, 2011, and so on. But if the KPIs would have been reported quarterly, you'd have would have had here only 4 data inserted for the 4 quarters, or if the data would have been submitted yearly, only 1 data for the overall value calculated or monitored for the year. Of course, these kind of Microsoft Excel tools can be configured as part of BI solutions, and they might be more informed. You might have additional fields here, and the solution might be more intuitive. Such a solution is available also as part of our performance management platform, and later on I will send a link to Ali, which will give you access to such a solution, to review such a more automated solution. Now, let's look at the data analysis as an important building block of the KPI management framework. And in terms of data analysis, we'll discuss about the main data analysis processes, techniques. We'll look into monitoring and improving KPIs, single loop and double loop learning approach, and we'll end up this second part of the webinar with some insights relating to the benchmarking. In terms of data analysis process, such process reveals interdependencies between KPIs or other variables that influence business performance, and also helps to identify the real cause of problems. Now, once the data is collected, the next step will be to clean the data, to make sure that all the data is reliable. Next step after securing the data collected is reliable is to inspect the data and make some general comments, raise some general questions and conclusions on the raw data. And afterwards we are discussing about transforming the data. It's about looking at the data and analyzing the data either statistically or structuring the data into scorecards and dashboards, which tools which we are going to review at the end of this webinar. The last part of the data analysis is to interpret the data. So it's not enough to collect the data and to monitor the data, but it's very important to interpret the data. It's very important to make comments based on the results that we are analyzing, both individually for KPIs, but also collectively for a cluster of KPIs. And here we can discuss about a scorecard or a dashboard. In terms of data analysis techniques, the most common one is the root cause analysis. And the premise which stays at the base of the root cause analysis are that problems are best solved by eliminating causes, not by eliminating only the symptoms. So we need to explore what triggers those symptoms, what are the actual causes of certain results in terms of KPI data. It's also considered as part of a continuous improvement process, and over time this method prevents problems. Now, as a subset of the root cause analysis, we can discuss and we can employ Ishikawa diagram. It's about looking about what could be the main causes, the main elements that influence a certain result. In this case, we are talking about late boarding, and we can identify as certain issues that can emerge: boarding control breakdown, late connected passengers, late boarding announcements, checking of hand luggage at gate delays process. All this can trigger a late boarding end. Now, these are symptoms that cause a problem. We'll need to look at the root of these symptoms. And this can be done by employing another technique, which is called the 5 whys technique. It's about questioning why caused a certain issue to emerge. In terms of the late boarding end, we have, for example, as a possible symptom, checking of hand luggages at gate delays processes. Why this happens? Because we might have long discussions with passengers. Why we had long discussions with passengers? Because maybe passengers refuse to check in luggage. Why this happens? Because high baggage theft rates are registered in certain developing countries at airports. So this is one of the techniques that can be employed. Is it also called the children technique? Yes, because children usually are the ones who are questioning, usually parents, why, and so on. Here you have some examples in terms of using this technique. And we have a dialogue between two colleagues. Joe, why did customer X orders arrive late? Well, Gabe, the order wasn't completed on time. Why was the order not completed on time? I believe the machine was overheated. Check with Dave. And then we switched to the other colleague. Hey Dave, do you know why the machine was overheated? The oil level in the machine was low. Why was the oil level low? I didn't know it was time to check the oil. What can be done to solve this problem? Light an end buzzer to notify the operator when oil levels are low. Great idea. I will get those installed right away. Now, what is important with this technique is the point where you stop with asking these questions. And you shouldn't stop on the person. You shouldn't stop at the person as the main trigger of a certain issue in a process that you are employing. But you should look actually at the process itself. What caused it? What can we repair? What can we do in terms of overhauling the process? So the problem should be in the process, not in the persons in charge of those processes. That's a very important aspect of performance management and individual performance management in relation with an integrated approach to monitoring performance and managing performance in an organization. Another issue, another aspect important is the double loop, the single loop and the double loop learning approach. And in terms of this, there is a very interesting story in the book named 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, written by Stephen Covey. And there was a story about an expedition, and they were making their way in the jungle with the machetes. And at some point, one of the members of the expedition stopped and asked the others, "Hey, are we going on the right direction?" And then he got the answer, "Silence, we are progressing." Now, it's not important only to progress, but to progress in the right direction. And the double loop learning approach allows us not only to monitor KPIs, strategic objectives, but also to try to look into these KPIs, look into these objectives, question if we are monitoring the right KPIs, if we are employing the right objectives, if we are using the right initiatives for reaching our objectives established. So the double loop learning approach is very important in the process of correctly managing with KPIs. Going further, I will discuss a little bit about benchmarking. Now everyone, or hopefully everyone, knows and was in a way connected with in their activities with benchmarking analysis. In terms of benchmarking, it's very important how we are doing this benchmarking, because doing benchmarking is a very sensitive issue. It is very easy to compare different things while we are monitoring or different data where we are monitoring the same KPIs. Why? Because KPIs tend to be calculated in different ways by different organizations, and also oftenly same KPIs are measured differently within the same organization. So we must be very aware of what we are comparing, both internally or externally, in terms of looking at the benchmarking approach. For example, one of the KPIs that is monitored by the tram system in Melbourne is punctuality. Now, each tram is considered to be on time or punctual if it arrives 59 seconds before the actual target established, let's say 10 o'clock at a certain station, and 4 minutes and 59 seconds or within 5 minutes after the exact target. So we are talking about a tolerance interval that was established. Now, the same KPI is monitored differently by the Brisbane tram system. They have only a 3 minutes point 59 seconds tolerance in terms of punctuality. So it's very important what we are measuring. Also in terms of the main scenarios which are usually seen in relation with or analyzed in relation with customer value. And here we are talking about operational excellence, we can talk about customer intimacy and product leadership. Now, in all this, we have, in regards with all these types of customer value-based approaches, they are in the same industries, different companies that have different ways of measuring performance, such as customer satisfaction, such as number of employees per customer, and so on. As an example, as Walmart has an operational excellence approach, same other organization from same industry, let's say Mark & Spencer or Nordstrom, are looking on a customer intimacy strategy. So measuring KPIs, looking at KPIs relates to the objectives of organization and strategies that are employed. So when benchmarking such KPIs, we need firstly to analyze what kind of strategies are employed. If we are talking about strategies, if we are talking about same ways of measuring KPIs. For example, what we have here, it's an example of a benchmarking report which is made available online by the United States Department of Transportation, and you can see an analysis of a certain KPI, dollars per passenger. Very important attached with benchmarking, but also in general with analyzing KPIs in a context of a scorecard and the dashboard, and we'll see as part of the last point of this webinar that we are going to approach, is to have some comments around the benchmarking data, around the analysis that is employed as part of the benchmarking process. So it's not enough to have some figures, we have to have an interpretation of the data which is made available. Very important is to look at the causality. Now, causality, we can talk about causality in terms of data, in terms of especially of historical data. If we have historical data, we can make some modeling, some forecasting and statistical analysis, and we can see, and based on this we can even establish targets for KPIs in terms of what we are targeting in the future or next period of time. For example, we might have a figure on customer satisfaction, but as part of the analysis, we've discovered that a certain level of customer satisfaction, a certain increase in the level of customer satisfaction, let's say with 10% from 60% to 70% customer satisfaction, triggered an increase, or is one of the triggers of the increase in profits, in terms of, let's say, it impacts 1% of the increase in profits. So then we can make some analysis. If we further increase the customer satisfaction to 20%, what is the impact on the profitability of the company, but also on other factors that customer satisfaction is in a way influencing both upstream or downstream. The last aspect that I'm going to discuss today is about the KPI scorecards and dashboards as enablers of analysis and reporting. Now, in terms of scorecards and dashboard, this impact both the data visualization but also the reporting process as building blocks and main components of a KPI management framework. And I'll discuss in relation with these tools that can be employed in terms of both data visualization and reporting. Firstly, however, let's have a look on the report compilation process. And This here, what you have on your right side hand of the screen is quite a complicated process, but as it looks here, but though it's intuitive if we look at him. Once you have the data available, so the KPIs are activated and the data is collected, we need to check the accuracy of the data to have accurate data. And if the data is not accurate, we'll send the data back to data custodians and or the people which are collecting or in charge with the data to recheck the data for an accurate submission. In the case if the data is accurate, we'll process the data, we'll make the quality assurance review, and again, we can if the quality of data is according with what we are targeting, we can proceed on with making the analysis and interpretation of data. If not, we can make a further review of data. Once the review is done, we'll generate a report, and this report will be used as part of the performance review meetings or strategy review meetings that should be organized monthly, quarterly for managing performance within your department or your organization. Now, while doing this report, as I already emphasized before, it's not important only to insert and work with some figures, but it's very important to make some commentaries, to interpret the data. And usually a scorecard at strategic level can have up to from 3 to up to 5 or even more pages of interpretation, but usually a 5 pages report analyzing the KPIs in context, analyzing the interrelationships between KPIs and results that emerged for a certain period that was monitored should be enough. One of the best practices generally is from Southwest Airlines. They have best one of the what I should call them the most elaborated and transparent reports on their data, the data that they are analyzing. Usually what you have here is data related to internal processes, to financial and to customers. We are looking at passengers, revenue generated. This part is financial performance. While we are monitoring and interpreting the data in the context, we should also interpret the data for each KPI. So we should launch and we should have some comments around each of these KPIs in terms of analyzing performance, analyzing what influenced a certain result, communicating what is the levels that needs or are overlooked to be targeted in the next period, and so on. So doing such comments around KPIs data gives clarity, and while doing this facilitates communication and efficiency in improving performance. Now we'll look at some examples of scorecards and dashboards. Look at them as an expo of different solutions that can be employed for visualizing the data, for collecting the data, and reporting the KPI data. This example is a template developed by the KPI Institute as part of the Microsoft Office Toolkit development. This is actually a snapshot from the Microsoft Excel template developed, which contains the scorecard. Now, the scorecard looks at the main balanced scorecard perspective, so I'm not calling it a balanced scorecard, and I'm calling it a scorecard because the balanced scorecard, while at the beginning, as you most probably know, was launched by Kaplan and Norton as one page summarizing KPIs clustered in 4 perspectives: financial, customer, internal processes, and learning, people, learning, and growth. Now it has developed in a tool which comprises the strategy map, the portfolio of initiatives, and other related tools. So this scorecard has several sections which we consider that needs to be part of such a tool, such a data visualization and reporting solution. So here we have a column with the name of the KPIs cluster under objectives and perspectives. We have a code for each KPI, the reporting frequency for each KPI, quarterly, monthly, yearly. We have the results from the previous period and from the current period, so we can make some comparisons. We have the trend, increasing, decreasing, or constant, balanced. We have the targets that we are looking for these KPIs, and we have a target completion column. Samely, it's important to have a visualization of your performance, and here it's important, or it's advisable, to use the traffic lights, which gives you more clarity and focus in terms of what is the status of the KPIs that you are monitoring. As well, it's important to have a section with comments. For each KPI, you should have certain comments in terms of what was the development of that KPI in time. It will also allow persons who are new and not accustomed with those KPIs to see what is the historical record of monitoring that KPI and what needs to be done to collect and interpret the data for that certain KPI. And also, it's very important to have legends explaining each of these elements what mean. Now, let's look at some examples from different organizations around the world. For example, here it's good that these all the KPIs are clustered on different perspectives, and it's a very good practice that we have a legend, as I already emphasized. For this KPI, for this scorecard, we have some sections, some comparison sections. Also, we have colors to reflect the achievement of targets. And samely, it's important to know that perspective, balanced scorecard perspective can be adapted, so we don't have to stick only to the 4 standard perspectives, but we can have cluster other perspectives. Here, for example, we have 6 perspectives in which KPIs are clustered or consolidated. Now, for me, it's not such a good best practice dashboard as is, though it's important to have the traffic lights. It has too many colors, so it might detract attention. This is another example of KPI representation. Now it resembles more with a dashboard in the way it is now configured, though we have the 4 perspectives. Now, in terms of data visualization, one of the best practices with this scorecard is that we have a bullet graphs representation. So these type of representations are called bullet graphs and are considered as best practices in terms of data visualization because it gives you a lot of information in shrinked in a limited space. We have with the black line what is the actual, with red we have what is the target that we are looking for. Here with the other color we can have different values for different periods of the year of different monitoring periods. It's very important also to have a progress section. How we progressed. Is the trend good? Are we increasing? Are we stagnating? Are we decreasing in terms of benchmarking different periods of time? Clustering KPIs under objectives monitor, it's another good practice, but a better approach would be to have the objective and under each objective to have the KPIs that monitor the achievement of that specific objective. While doing this, we can use the space more efficiently and we can insert other columns with other relevant details that might be important for a quick analysis of this type of scorecard. Another important aspect while working with scorecards and dashboard is standardizing KPIs names. And we've discussed about KPI naming and KPI documentation as part of a previous webinar that we had and is available on the MILE platform. Now, here we have some name of the KPIs, but we have the definition. If these KPIs would have been standardized and we'd have had some symbols like number symbol, dollar symbol for money value, percentage symbol for percentages, it would have been much easier and intuitive, and we wouldn't have needed this additional section with the definition. Same if while you have a KPI documentation form, you can add the definition, the calculation formulas, the purpose in a template, in a form which should be developed for each individual KPI. We are not staying too good with the time, but 5 more minutes should be enough to end up this webinar. In terms of this scorecard, it's very important to the way you structure the information and the way you are structuring the columns. For example, here we have actual results and growth. So we have 2 types of data which are clustered under the same column. It would be more clear to have different columns with these 2 types of information. Again, it will be better to use different types of colors for signaling the results. Green for targets that were accomplished, red for targets which were or results under certain minimum targets. Yellow can be used for intermediate or tolerance intervals or targets. Standardizing KPIs, I've already discussed. It's better to have a standardized approach, 1 column, which will give you a clear glimpse on what we are talking in terms of a certain KPIs. So we won't need these 2 types of columns. And as in the scorecard developed by the KPI Institute is useful and it's recommended to have a section dedicated to details, because usually during performance review meetings you are launching comments for KPIs. Now the ones which are usually analyzed are the KPIs on red, or the ones also the ones on yellow with trends which are decreasing or which are going in the wrong directions. So usually, because of the lack of time, these are the KPIs which are monitored. These are the KPIs for which we have comments in terms of what needs to be done to be to improve meeting the target for those KPIs. If the targets were set correctly, what needs to be done if we have any limitations in the data gathering process, and so on and so forth. Now, using the legends, using small summaries can also help in giving you a clear glimpse on analyzing and interpreting the data from a scorecard, and also looking at forecasting data can also be something that can be measured. Now, in terms of structuring or designing such a scorecard, each organization has the flexibility to develop its own structure, its own scorecard with the section that things that add value for the data analysis process. But it's important to try to consolidate on one page as much information or as much crucial information as possible, without being too detailed, without being too confused. Now, another tool that is usually used at operational level are the dashboards. This is mainly the difference for me between scorecards and dashboards. While scorecards are monitoring the KPIs or performance at strategic level, dashboards are looking on the more operational side of the business. Usually, dashboards are more oftenly visualized, analyzed. That's why usually KPIs are configured with a visual representation, with graphs and such traffic light solutions. This is a dashboard developed by the KPI Institute. It's quite crowded dashboard, but take it as an example. The most important bit of the dashboard is that the information is clustered on certain functions of a particular department. For example, here we are looking on a medical institution dashboard operation side, and we can cluster the KPIs based on different functions of medical centers, such as service delivery, workload and productivity, resource utilization, and we can actually subtract and have a dashboard for each of these sections which were consolidated in this dashboard. So this is a more straightforward and better solution. You can build dashboards based on certain clusters, certain functions, certain relations between KPIs that you are monitoring at operational level. This also will enable you the analysis process, as you can analyze the KPIs in context, and you can look at interdependencies between different values for these KPIs. As I already emphasized, the KPIs as best practices is good to be clustered in different functions. For example, for the HR department, we can have a dashboard with, for example, employee satisfaction. We can have a section with working environment, we can have a section with CV screenings and retention, recruitment, all these kinds of sections. For all these kinds of sections, we can build different dashboards, which are more visual representation tools. It's good to have traffic lights, but samely, we shouldn't have too many graphs, too many information on a page. We should stick only to the information that is the most useful one. Obviously, BI solutions have more intuitive characteristics, and you can do more in terms or more things in terms of structuring the data, analyzing the data, visualizing the data. There is a difference between dashboards and infographics. So it's important to make distinction between informative tools and tools that actually are tracking and analyzing performance. This resembles more with an infographic, for example. Now, in terms of data visualization, for comparing individual values, is recommendable to use bar charts. And this is a dashboard from BP annual report, and I consider it as a best practice. It might be a little bit too colorful, but still it's very well represented. Line charts are usually employed to identify trends and look at trend analysis, especially when you are looking at historical data. We can talk about yearly data, but you can look at trend analysis in terms of a certain year and monthly performance or quarterly performance. Pie and dance charts are not the best choice. Usually try to use them only when necessary and at a minimum. Usually one of the KPIs for which such a graphical representation is used is the market share. So for market share, usually you are using a pie. Otherwise, it's better to try to use line charts, bar charts for representing KPIs and for analyzing KPIs into context. Also, you can accompany dashboards and KPI analysis with comments. This can be a best practice that can be employed, especially when you have a limited number of KPIs which are clustered as part of a certain dashboard. Where you have more KPIs, then it might be not so easy to also have a section with comments inserted. Also, arrows make it very easy to understand the KPI's evolution. Now, another way to represent the KPIs is using sparklines. And sparklines are very useful to illustrate the trend and the evolution of a KPI. So again, it's best practice that can be employed. Is usually part of the Microsoft Excel solution. And this should be all in terms of this webinar. As a review, we've looked at the KPI activation process and the main techniques, meeting KPI data custodians, the community of practice, and reminder emails that can be sent, having the data gathering template as the main tools, the data gathering process, and again here we have the data gathering template, data analysis, and with look at root cause analysis, Ishikawa diagram, and we've discussed about the 5 whys. And as main enablers of the KPI data gathering, analysis, and reporting, we've reviewed several KPI scorecard and dashboards, and we look at ways to consolidate and put together such reports that will enable your performance management process. Thank you very much for joining this webinar. Now I'll pass the word to Ali in order to facilitate the Q&A section. And just before doing this, Ali, and dismissing me, I want to let you know that as you saw, we already spend more than one hour looking on these aspects. There are several building blocks as part of the KPI management framework, and all these building blocks with levers and processes, tools, techniques, and other aspects relating to performance management are part of the certified KPI professional and practitioner training programs that the KPI Institute is facilitating around the world. The next one will be in Jeddah between 8 and 12 of September. The persons who are interested in exploring further the KPI management framework as developed and elaborated by the KPI Institute is invited to contact the organizer of this event and to register to attending such a certification program. Thank you very much once again.
Well, thank you very much,
Ali?
Adrian. Yeah. Folks, as Mr. Adrian Brudens talked about in the end about the program of KPI, which is going to be held between September 8th and 12th in Jeddah for certification in practitioner and professional KPI certifications. I've just broadcasted the link, mile.org/KPI. The enrollment is open, so you can always feel free to register for it. Meanwhile, we are open for the Q&A, so if you have questions, you could either raise your hand, and I will unmute your microphone to give you a chance to speak directly to Adrian, or you could put your questions in the chat box. I see there is a hand already raised, and there are a few questions posted in the chat box, so let me move first towards one by one and see the people who have raised their hand. Mr. Manzar Alam, Brother Manzar Alam, you've raised your hand. If you can hear me, could you please introduce yourself and ask the question? Brother Manzar Alam, can you hear us? Manzar Alam, I think he has some issues with an audio. Let me move to the next caller. We have Mr. Saad Fatih. Brother Saad Fatih, if you can hear us, could you please introduce yourself and ask the question?
Yeah, Mr. Ali, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir. Indeed. Please introduce
yourself. Yes, very well.
Yeah, okay. This is Saad Fatih from Saudi German Hostel. I'm working as a group functions coordinator. And really, first of all, I would like to thank you for this presentation. It's really will add for us, and thank you for all. I have two questions. The first one is regarding the KPIs. You explained for us and presented the nature of KPIs and how we can build it and how we can collect the data, analyzing and all the information you give it to us in this valuable presentation. But I would like to ask you about the actual land. Do we have references for every functions, like HR functions, finance functions, related to the healthcare management? I mean, for example, in our hostels, we have a lot of functions in all areas, and we are trying now to have KPIs and standardize it for every area. And I'm asking if we have somebody did that before, and we can get a benefit from this to save our time. It will be a benefit for us. Second question. Regarding what you mentioned, the difference between the scorecard and the balanced scorecard. Can you repeat it again, please? What is the difference between scorecard and the balanced scorecard?
Yeah, yes, definitely. So I will, thank you for the questions. I will start with the last one. Now, generally, the popular term is the balanced scorecard. However, balanced scorecard, when we are discussing about balanced scorecard nowadays, we are talking about an entire performance management system, which is comprised by an actual scorecard or the list with KPIs, as I've presented to you in examples during the webinar, but also other tools. We have a strategy map where we are mapping the objectives for which we are monitoring the KPIs. We have a portfolio of initiatives which relate with the projects that are employed for reaching the objectives that the organization or a certain department is setting. So in this context, just to make the difference, for me, the balanced scorecard is the entire system comprised from these different elements: the scorecard, the strategy map, the portfolio of initiatives. We can have another tool called desired state of evolution, which captures the strategy of the organization, and the scorecard, which is the actual list, as I've presented to you, with the KPIs, with the data for those KPIs, with the comments, and how those KPIs are clustered in different perspectives. So this would be the difference between the balanced scorecard and the scorecard. Now, in terms of your initial questions, or the first question, we already have several participants from hospitals, both from Middle East region, but also from other parts of the world, to our training programs. And definitely in the healthcare sector, performance management is a very important aspect. Now, in terms of establishing KPIs for different functions of the organization, there, from what I know, or in terms of public data, there is no data available or KPIs available or set for a specific hospital. But we have a general tool. For example, the KPI Institute have developed these toolkits, performance management toolkits, for medical centers, as I've presented a dashboard from a medical center toolkit, and hospitals, in which we've clustered the KPIs which we consider that should be monitored for overlooking the general performance of a medical center or a hospital. In terms of functions, however, how you can proceed with is to look on our database, and I'll give you an example. Here, what you have in front of you is the Smart KPIs database, and our KPIs are clustered based on functional areas and industries. So you have KPIs specific to the healthcare industry, but then you have KPIs specific for certain functions, such as human resources, such as marketing, such as supply chain, logistics, and so on. And all these KPIs, while they are documented as general KPIs, can be adjusted or personalized for specific industries. So this personalization usually is done as part of an internal process, because each entity has a certain identity, and each entity is monitoring different KPIs as part of different contexts and different strategies, as I already emphasized during the webinar. Hopefully I've responded to your question. So the solutions will be, in the first place, to go on smartkpis.com and register there and look at the KPIs and try to come up with a solution.
Yes, Mr. Radin, really thank you for your answer. It's clear, and I would like to. I think it.
Or you can join also one of the programs that we are employing, because basically what we are doing during these certification programs is taking each building block step by step and analyzing it and putting into the context and actually looking on how we should correctly work with KPIs as part of performance management approach.
Yeah, for sure. I received the invitation, and I will do my best to attend this these courses, inshallah. But I'm trying also to, if I have communication with you directly, because maybe we can.
Yes, you can also join the My Community of Practice can be another channel that you can use to approach us, both me and the CEO of the company, Mr. Aurel Burdan, and there we can further discuss and engage in finding solutions for your needs.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I'm just broadcasting again the link towards the model community where you can even join the community practices for the KPI, which is being administered by Adrian and Mr. Oral as well. So let me move to another caller. If you can just give me a few seconds. Thank you very much, Brother Sadi, for your questions also. We have we have Dr. Muhammad Faridi. Dr. Muhammad, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, Doctor. Could you please introduce yourself, where you're calling, and feel free to ask questions, sir?
Yeah, I'm a professor at Salman bin Abdulaziz University, and I'm the Department of Marketing. And first of all, thank you very much, Adrian and Ali Zafri, for having such a wonderful interactive session on KPI Institute. And I was very impressed with it. My question is, in perspective of the higher education, can we have some kind of a KPIs? Obviously we can have, because it's a service sector, but do you have any awareness about the best world-class universities having some kind of a KPIs, and they make analysis, and do you have some kind of a data so that, you know, we at Saudi Arabia and Al-Kharj can think of starting at from the initial level the KPIs on various parameters?
Yes, definitely. Now the educational sector or the educational industry is one of the industry most accustomed with performance management, and I think that there are quite a few organizations, universities, K-12 institutions, and so on, which are employing performance management frameworks all over the world, from US to Europe and other parts of the world. There are also a lot of examples which we've reviewed from educational institutions, both higher education and K-12 institutions. And most of these examples of KPIs we've consolidated as part of our KPI database. And again, I'm going to our website, and you have here education and training section. And if you go on it, there are over 700 examples of KPIs which are clustered in different sections: academic education, colleges and universities, primary and secondary schools, training and other education. So definitely these institutions are substantially monitoring performance, and we also had projects for us with some of these institutions in terms of employing a balanced scorecard structure and developing KPIs for educational institutions. Anything else that I can assist you with in terms of?
Yeah, I fully agree. Like, for sure, it's like we are getting ourselves registered with NCAA, and we like KPIs is a very important focus area where we have to like make a balanced scorecard and, you know, make a comparison of certain, like for example the teacher-student ratio, etc. Like student graduated with a specific amount of employment. So we are doing it. I'm sure like it will be kind of exciting for our university to have this kind of thing. So perhaps I will be in touch with the KPI Institute, and perhaps I'll be in touch with you if we need further assistance and help. And I appreciate if you can. I'm sorry, like I missed a couple of the earlier slides, so I appreciate if you can, like someone can, like maybe Ali Jafri can send us
from what
PPT's presentations to us would be appreciated.
Yeah.
From what I know, both the soft copies will be made available, but also the recording of the webinar, both as a video recording and audio recording, will be available on my community and YouTube. So you can review the
share with my
entire
colleagues also.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Just to add on, Doctor, thank you for the question again.
Thank you very much. Yes.
I have just posted a link again, broadcasted to everyone, the link to the previous webinars, which was arranged by Mal but conducted by Smart KPIs on the similar topics of developing KPIs, selecting KPIs, and documentation of KPIs. All these 3 webinars are available on the Mile community in the archive section with the facility to download the soft copy of the presentations and to access the YouTube presentations. We will be uploading the same webinar on YouTube and on our Mile community in about 2 days post this webinar. So let me move to another caller. I think we can take a couple of more. I see a number of hands are already raised and there are questions in the chat box. So, but let me give preference to the people who have raised their hands. We have Brother Alam Musa. Brother, can you hear us and introduce yourself and ask the question?
Yeah, thank you so much. This is Dr. Alam Musa. I am the Deputy President for Planning and Equality at Al-Najah University in Palestine. I would like to thank you so much for this very important webinar actually. I had several questions, but many of them have been answered previously. But my main question was about clustering the educational KPIs. Should it be as large as possible, I mean the clustering, or as small as possible? We have passed through a very good experience here at Al-Najah University for the last year, let's say, where we have defined our KPIs and we are still reviewing that. But do we have to go for large clusters and each cluster consists of few KPIs or not? The other issue is, how long do we expect to get the impact of this KPI system? Should it be in a year or 2 years or less than that or more? To see how does the KPI system will help the implementation of the strategic plan, for example, or improving the quality of the management system at the university. That will be fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, there are 2 very important questions which I'm often being asked during our sessions and which are also debated during our training sessions. One is about clustering KPIs and working with tools such as scorecards and dashboards. Now, I don't know what was your approach employed within the university you are part of, but some organizations are preferring to use an approach based only on scorecards, monitoring the objectives, the strategic objectives, or the both organizational and department level. Some other organizations are preferring to have to monitor the KPI based on certain functions, so they are not monitoring the achievement of certain objectives, but they have certain directions, and for those directions they have a certain number of KPIs which are clustered together. However, some others, and this is what we consider best practice, is to have a dual approach towards monitoring and managing performance in terms of using a combination of scorecards for monitoring the strategy of the organization, the strategic objectives, and the operational side, which is measured through dashboards. Now, in terms of the dashboards, usually, as I've said, the KPIs are clustered based on certain functions, on certain interdependencies and relation between KPIs. How many KPIs should we use? Now, this depends on each organization but also on the tools that are employed. When you have more automated solutions, you have more also more solutions or more options, so to say, in terms of clustering KPIs, of structuring KPIs, and it might be more intuitive. When you have solutions like Microsoft Excel, you cannot have so many options, so it's about how many KPIs you can structure on a page. In order to make the information readable and to be clear cut. So it can vary. Usually I'm not a supporter of having like 20 or 30 KPIs clustered on the same dashboard. I prefer to have smaller dashboards with 5 up to 8 KPIs, but it depends. It depends on the organization. I saw dashboards with 1 KPI. I saw, and I've developed dashboards with 5 KPIs, with 7, with 10 KPIs. It all depends on the solution used, on the tools employed, on the characteristics of the performance management system. So it's not necessarily a good or bad solution. It's about what are the levers and the approaches that the organization finds more suitable. In terms of the second question, the impact of KPIs on improving organizational performance, again, the impact can vary from organization to organization, depending on the level of support that is received from executive management, depending on the performance culture and how much is spread or understood by the people involved in the performance management process. Is dependent on the experience of the people who are managing the process. Usually the impact of such a framework cannot be seen in a short period of time. You can have some short wins for some KPIs. You can see some very quick improvements, but in terms of the overall framework, the improvements required an improvement in the maturity level of performance management capabilities of the organization. So you can look maybe in a 1 year time to have a more consistent framework, and then we are talking about a continuous learning and improvement process. So basically you'll have more results, more value added as you go and use the performance management system. That will be all from my side. If I can help you with more details.
Yeah. Okay, Brother Dr. Ala Musa, I hope that suffices the answer, and we can move to another caller if you allow us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your question, Doctor. Let me move to another caller quickly, and we request you to kindly be precise and brief in your questions so we can take a few other calls and the questions. So give a chance to everyone. Thank you very much. Let me move to another one. Brother Khalid Bawazir. Brother Khalid Bawazir, you raised your hand. Could you please introduce yourself and where you're calling from and ask a question?
Yes, please. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Good. First of all, thank you very much for this good presentation. But my question will be very simple. But because we are working in Arabic culture, the KPIs usually, and as you know, it's one of the most difficult topics to establish it among this culture. So my question is simple. What is the best definition we can give for the KPIs, key performance indicators? And I'm asking this because, as I said, In the Arabic culture, we are using the Arabic translation, which is مؤشرات الأداء, if you heard it. And also, what is the relation between the KPIs and the strategic objectives?
Okay, between KPIs. The first question was, what is the definition for KPIs?
The best definition for the KPIs.
Okay. Okay, very good. Thank you for the questions. First of all, two again important questions that can clarify some of the aspects in relation with monitoring and managing with KPIs. First question in relation with what are KPIs, or what is the best definition for KPIs? Now, nowadays we are hearing and we are working with different terms and terminology for performance measures or indicators. We have indicators, performance indicators, key performance indicators, performance measures, and so on. Different organizations are using different terminologies. For example, the New York municipality is using performance measures. The UK Audit Commission is using term performance indicators. The Jeddah municipality is using key performance indicators. It was a framework developed by Mr. or Dr. Freem.
Yeah, we know him very well.
And is considered, for me, is one of the best practices and most transparent frameworks, performance management frameworks available to the public at this stage at the global level. Why? Because the things are quite clear, and they are using key performance indicators. So there's not a specific terminology. What, for me, you can use a granular approach to working with KPIs. You can say that, okay, everything that is measured, we call them metrics, and certain KPIs that are used at the operational level can be considered as performance indicators, and the ones which are monitored at strategic level, which are the most important for the organization, which are monitoring the achievement of objectives, are key performance indicators. So they are key for the organizational success. This can be one approach, a more granular approach, which I'm not specifically recommending. I prefer the approach where we are using the term KPI for everything that we are measuring in relation with the organizational performance. So whatever we are measuring and is important for a specific line of business, for me it's a KPI, it's a key performance indicator. It can be monitored at strategic level, it can be monitored at operational level. In terms of KPIs, it's about choosing. It's like a restaurant menu. You can go for a simple solution, which is more easier to be communicated and more easier to be understood by employees, by peers in an organization, or you can go with a more complicated or a more granular solution, but which for me requires a more mature level of understanding and structuring. It's a matter of making decisions. In terms of the relation between KPIs and strategic objectives, now that is a very good question. What are KPIs? KPIs are tools that are used to monitor the achievement of the organizational strategic objectives in relation with the strategy of the organization. So we might have we have a strategy, we have 10 objectives, and in order to oversee if we reach those objectives, we measure them through different KPIs. Now also, this is in relation in the upstream relation, between KPIs and objectives. Downstream, we have the initiatives. in order to reach the objectives, we need to employ certain initiatives. So both KPIs and initiatives are relating with objectives at the strategic level, measuring the strategy of the organization or measuring the strategy of the department. Now, we can also talk about KPIs at operational level. And here is also the difference between the scorecard and the dashboard. You can look at the scorecard as a GPS system. You insert the destination and the GPS will show you the direction, how long it will take to reach the destination if you are progressing with a certain speed. Now, while you are driving to a destination with a car, let's say, you will need to look at certain gauges. You need to make certain operations while driving the car. You need to fuel the car, you need to brake, you need to speed up, and so on. These are operational activities that can be monitored with KPIs, which enables you in turn to reach your destination. So are operational aspects which enables you to reach your final destination or the strategy of the organization if it is to extrapolate things. So this would be the difference between scorecard and dashboard, between using KPI at strategic level or at the operational level, as we are promoting it or as we are looking at it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Brother Khalid Bawazir for your question. Let me quickly move to the next caller. We have Brother Badr Al-Jundi. Brother Badr Al-Jundi, can you hear us? Could you please introduce yourself and ask the question?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes? Okay, we can hear you very fine, Badr.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
This is Badr Al-Jundi. I'm working in Al-Wifaq Trading and Manufacturing Company. I'm handling the Performance Management and Business Intelligence Department. Actually, thank you first of all for the webinar, and we are looking forward for more and more webinars, inshallah. As you have mentioned, KPIs monitor the organization performance towards achieving its strategic objectives. Is there a link between the KPIs and individuals' performance and evaluation and the appraisal system? I mean from individual perspective, not only organization performance. This is my first question. Second, does the KPI management framework cover any aspect of the employees' performance management system, or it's only related to the overall organization performance?
Okay, well, thank you for the questions. Definitely, employee performance management is a very important aspect of managing organizational performance. And traditionally, organizations were looking at performance management as evaluations and monitoring performance at individual level. As a discipline, performance management is new and started to develop and get shape in the last 30 years, to say, starting with 1990s. And progressively, we've started to discuss about strategic performance management, about operational performance management, but definitely an integrated approach for managing performance will need to look at all three levels: strategic level or organizational level, operational level or department level, if you want to call it like this, and individual performance management. You can go even further and look at personal performance management aspects in relation with managing the KPI management framework. Now, in terms of KPIs, ideally KPIs and the framework should be developed and established at strategic level and then aligned or cascaded down to operational level and up to individual level. So ideally, we should have KPIs aligned, individual KPIs aligned to the organizational strategy. In terms of the KPI management framework, definitely one of the components that is discussed, and we are going to provide examples and case studies, is the employee performance management. However, generally the KPI framework can be applied and shaped as it is with the tools, levers, and all the aspects that are discussed at all levels, from strategic level to operational level to individual level. So such a KPI management framework and approach, while discussed generally about working with KPIs, is looking into different ways to establish performance at different levels, provide solution, and is applicable and can be personalized for establishing performance at different levels. As part of performance management framework. What I called an integrated performance management framework will look at all levels of performance.
Well, thank you very much.
I hope that my answer will suffice your questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Brother Badr Al-Jani.
Thank you, sir.
For the question. Let me move to another caller. We have Brother Musa Al-Amir. Brother Musa, I believe your microphone is on mute. Brother Musa Al-Amir, can you hear us? Your microphone seems... Okay, yes, Brother Musa Al-Amir.
Yeah, it's okay now.
Yes, brother, it's okay. Could you please introduce yourself, where you're calling from, and please ask the question, and would appreciate if you could be precise and brief.
Yeah, I'm Musa Al-Amir, the Dean of the Technical College at Jazan in Saudi Arabia. Now, the TVTC, Technical and Vocational Training Corporation in Saudi Arabia, start to establish or to launch the what they call autonomous colleges, and it starts also the KPIs to monitor the excellence of these colleges. Today, for example, we have a meeting in the TVTC to discuss about the KPIs and what shall we start and what shall we do with these KPIs. Like the graduation ratio, we agreed for some of the KPIs, but I have more questions, or we don't have an idea or details about how to deal with these KPIs, or can we say in our technical colleges in the last years, we don't have any information about the KPIs or strategic planning or operational planning. Now, from what's the first?
Brother Musa, we lost your voice. Are you still there? Adrian, can you take it from where he left? I mean, maybe
yes, I can take it. Definitely, I can take it. And if Mr. Musa is not online, he can review the answer afterwards as part of the recording. So hopefully, I caught some of the issues that Mr. Musa was raising. Now, definitely, it's important while starting with developing the KPI management framework to look at to start from the strategy. So it's important to have a clear-cut strategy and strategy planning process employed. So, okay, if the TBTC, the government body, is requesting to monitor some KPI, this can be done if it's a requirement, it happens often that entities, bodies, governmental bodies have different requirements in terms of monitoring a set of KPIs. In terms of this, it can be done easily. However, in terms of establishing a KPI management framework, this should be done while starting from a strategic planning session, establishing an architecture, a strategic level, which can be aligned with some of the objectives that TVTC is, in this case, particular case, is looking for or is monitoring at the national level. But such a framework should have also structured or consolidated objectives as part of what is the strategy of the technical college and what are their main objectives for reaching the strategy of the organization, and also the objectives at the national level. In terms of this, definitely, again, they have to go with looking on establishing these KPIs, having workshops for establishing KPIs at strategic level, at operational level for different departments, operational, educational side of the organization as an educational institution, but also other operational aspects and support the departments such as HR, logistics, marketing, and so on and so forth. So in terms of this, yes, there are quite a lot of difficulties in terms of establishing KPIs. This is one of the major challenges generally for organizations throughout the world, not only in Saudi Arabia and Middle East. But this can be done by employing such a KPI management framework. One of the solutions would be to review such webinars that we've developed in partnership with MAL. Other solution could be to join such programs in which we discuss and actually we learn how to correctly work with KPIs and how to build such a framework, develop KPIs, develop a structure for each organization. So individuals participating to these kind of programs, individuals participating to these kind of webinars should afterwards be able to customize the KPIs and develop KPIs on their own in order to serve their and structure their KPI management frameworks. Hopefully that in part I've answered Mr. Musa question.
Yeah, Mr. Musa, I believe you're having some connection or technical problems with an audio. I hope the question you raised was answered sufficiently. Let me move to another caller, and let's make it last caller because of the time constraint. We only have 8 more minutes, so let me quickly unmute oops, I have Mr. Riyad. Somehow I'm unable to, okay, here we go. Yes, Brother Riyad Habadi, could you please introduce yourself and ask the question?
Hi everyone, my name is Riyad. I'm Total Quality Management Director in College of Telecom and Electronics in Jeddah. Sorry, do you hear me please?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir. Please
okay.
Go ahead and ask.
My question is because we starting as what Mr. Amir, the Dean of the Design Technical College, he said KPIs and TVTC. So we in our college, for example, we built links between the general objectives and special objectives. After all these special objectives has operational plan to get the achievement for the goals, to get the target. And for each target we have KPI, and this KPI has standards to measure the KPI is good enough for our quality standards. my question is this methodology for work, is it right to go from the our upper objectives until get the standards for the KPIs? Do you get what I mean, please?
Hopefully I do. If not, please correct me.
Okay.
Now, it's good to have top-down approach. So first of all, it's advisable and it's recommendable to have a top-down approach in terms of aligning objectives from top level up to mid-level, or you can go even more granular to individual level. So first point, it is advisable. Secondly, we should be very precautious and aware of the terminology we are using, and in terms of understanding the terminology. You are talking about general objective, about special objectives, you are talking about targets, establishing KPIs for those targets, and so on. Different organizations employ and use different terminologies. Wherever we went, we found different terminologies used. Now, first of all, it's very important to understand the terminologies, and more importantly, especially that you are working together with TVTC, and actually today we had a conversation with the managing director of TVTC as well, and I know that they are looking on KPIs as they are members of our community. It's very important to have the same standards in terms of the terminology used in the relation with TVTC, and here I'm talking about all the colleges that are engaged in such initiatives. This is very important for you first to understand the terminology. Secondly is to have a correct terminology used, and terminology which is not confusing. So in our case, we like to call, to have strategic objectives for defining what are the directions of the organization. We like to have to monitor these objectives through KPIs, and in terms of KPIs, for each KPI, definitely we'll have a target attached. So the target will be linked to the KPI, not to the objective. Why? Because an objective can be monitored with more KPIs, and it can be monitored from different angles. Just to give an example, we could have as an objective optimize or increase customer satisfaction. Yes. Now I can measure these KPIs, this objective with a KPI which is very popular, customer satisfaction, percentage customer satisfaction, which is usually you get the data from a survey. But you can also measure these objectives through a KPI called number of customer complaints. Samely, another KPI would be NPS, which is Net Promoter Score. It's a KPI which became very popular nowadays, and it also can be benchmarked. It's based also on a survey. It has a question which can resemble this phrase: on a scale from 0 to 10, how satisfied are you with the services or with the product that's provided by my organization or our organization? And then you can score, and it has a specific calculation formula. And for each of these KPIs, you can set other targets. Again, while you are reaching the targets for a KPI in relation with monitoring a certain objective, you can switch the KPI. You can put it on hold, and you can look on another KPI on which you need to improve your performance in relation with a certain objective. So in terms of these targets, it's recommendable to be allocated or overlooked in relation with KPIs, not with objectives.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You are welcome. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you.
Well, Thank you very much, and that, folks, really brings us towards the end of the webinar. I understand there are some questions posted in the chat box, but because of the time constraints, we have to conclude it right now here. However, I would request you to please feel free to join the MILE community at www.milecop.net, and feel free to join the community practice area, which is being administered and moderated by Adrian and Oral for the KPIs and performance management. Again, if you would like to enroll yourself for the upcoming KPI professional and practitioner courses of master classes being arranged by MILE in collaboration with Smart KPIs in Jeddah between September 8th and September 12th, feel free to enroll yourself and register online, mile.org/KPI. A lot of people have requested about the soft copy of this presentation. Please be informed that we will be uploading the recorded version of this webinar on a MILE community, and you will have the access of the soft copy of the presentation from our download section from the community. So feel free to join us for free. With that, I would like to thank you, Adrian, on behalf of MILE for taking this time, rather an extended time, to conduct this very interactive webinar. Any concluding remarks you would like to give?
Thank you very much, first of all, for the opportunity of running this webinar. I'm very happy that there was so much engagement, and we had a lot of questions in relation with performance management and measurement aspects. Hopefully, I can answer more questions on my community in the near future, and hopefully I will be able to meet some of the participants to these webinars, to other events organized by the KPI Institute in partnership with MILE, such as the certification programs. Thank you once again, and I wish you best performance in your organizations.
Well, thank you very much, Adrian, once again, and thank you all of those who participated and made it an interactive experience for all of us. Thank you, and I am concluding this webinar, so you will all be automatically dismissed out. Once again, thank you very much, and you all have a good day, good evening, or